We're going to pivot a little bit here, and we're going to talk about one of the most important things about the ARI program, and that is we as a faculty are working side by side by students. We're taking them into our labs and our research labs in the here on the campus and out in the field. We're giving them networking opportunities, and one of the things that we want to foster is developing these critical thinking skills and these leadership skills, and getting our students started out on careers and giving them advice for how to do that, and helping them out in just about all, in the broadest sense of the words. Now, a few weeks ago, we have submitted a faculty survey, which is part of this process. And Nicole, if I can ask you to go ahead and turn on your camera.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, Nicole. So Nicole, we are working with Nicole Galport, who's a research associate with Cobblestone Applied Research and Evaluation. And they've developed this survey that she's going to explain how we want to use this, how we envision using it. And it's all about data. As scientists, we know we like data. And then and how this is going to lead into evaluating the ARI program, and with the students being the second part of the survey system. So Nicole, we have your slides, I believe, and you just will talk to Lauren and she'll advance your next slide. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you, and good morning, everyone. So nice to see you all. Thank you for having me. So as David mentioned, we are doing the student success and faculty mentoring section of the evaluation. So on our next slide, we just wanted to give a very quick overview of who we are. So Cobblestone, we are an education evaluation company that is based in Laverne, California. So those of you at Cal Poly Pomona, we are right next door. We also have an office in Washington, D.C. I myself, while I am a California native, lived there for 30 years. I am currently based in Portland, Oregon. We have worked on just about 100 evaluations that are funded by different agencies, most of them funded by government agencies, including the Department of Education, NSF, NIH, but we also work with other funders such as nonprofit and some for-profit organizations. So on our next slide, a very quick agenda. I believe I have 15 minutes, possibly a little less because I know that we had some Q&A for the previous panelists. So I'll go very quickly and try to be concise about what evaluation is in general, focusing in on the ARI evaluation. And then if we have any time, if there's any questions. I also have my contact information on the last slide. So if we don't get to any questions here, please feel free to give me an email or a phone call and we can discuss anything. So what is evaluation in general? So the definition that we typically use is that it's the systematic collection of analysis of information about project activities, characteristics, and outcomes that can be used for making judgments about the merit, worth, significance of a project or an organization, improving project effectiveness, as well as helping to inform decisions about future projects. And as you can see on the next slide, we really are honing in on that last section of program improvement and making sure that the program and ARI is working as effectively as possible. We also use evaluation findings for setting timelines and goals, accountability, keeping stakeholders informed, and this idea of supporting future funding. So anytime any of you are applying for grants or for funding, typically funding agencies would like to see, well, what is the evidence? Right? What is the previous research or previous evaluation shown? Where is the support? So this is where evaluation and where we come in as well, which is to do the research kind of on the outcomes, right? And then be able to provide support, if that is what the data says, to be able to help for future funding. So when you were listening to me talking, you were probably thinking a lot of this sounds very familiar to research. And so just as a brief kind of overview, with evaluation and with research, while the purposes may be different, the goals may be slightly different, same with the audiences and the types of questions that are asked. Really the foundation of both research and evaluation is the same. It is focused on strong designs, strong methods, data collection, data analysis procedures, and the validity and reliability of the data. And so for the most part, people that are doing evaluations, such as myself, we come from varying different fields. So at Cobblestone, we are made up of primarily social psychologists, cognitive psychologists. My background is in industrial and organizational psychology, as well as applied research methods. So we have all of our backgrounds are in research, but then taking it to an applied field. Just a very brief overview of the types of methods and designs that we may use. So the first is we do both quantitative and qualitative. Depending on the questions that are being asked, that is going to guide our methods, of course. Same with you for the research that you are conducting. But typically we will use a lot of surveys and tests and assessments. One thing that is really important to emphasize here is that our surveys, tests, and assessments that we use, we are primarily using validated and reliable scales that have strong psychometric properties, because we want to make sure that we are capturing the most accurate information, most reliable, and most valid data. We also frequently work with institutional research offices. So I'll get into this in just a little bit, but when we are working with students and looking at some of the student outcomes, what we typically do is also analyze some of the academic indicators and academic variables that they have. So that would include course grades, GPA, retention, persistence, graduation. And very rarely are each one of these data sources analyzed in a silo. What we typically do is use all of that information that's put into a model in order to look at some of our outcomes. We also use a lot of qualitative methods, and depending on the type of evaluation we are doing, those qualitative methods may be the base of our data, or we may use those qualitative methods to supplement and explain the quantitative findings that we have. So we do a lot of focus group interviews, a lot of individual interviews. Oh, can you hear me? Sorry, it looked like my camera disconnected, I'm sorry. We also will do observations of program activities. So today I am currently in a participant observation role while I am observing everything that is going on, but also then participating, of course. And we also do a lot of content analysis and document review. So taking all of that information, this is a really quick overview again, because I have just 15 minutes, but let's think about how it's applied to you all. So you are all very familiar with the primary activities of ARI, so the proposals and grants, the student research training, and then the faculty mentoring, both academic and career. So what we typically do with these evaluations is we look at both the implementation of a project or an institute, as well as some of the outcomes. So for our evaluation of ARI, what we would like to know are what are the primary activities that are associated with research, training, and mentorship. I know that you all are spread out across multiple campuses, right? So the type of research that the students are doing and the types of research that the PIs are doing may look very different. And the way that they are mentoring and training may look very different as well. So first of all, we want to know, well, what's happening, right? And then second, we want to know in what ways are these trainings and mentorings sessions the same, and how are they different? So the first thing that we're really trying to set up is being able to give you all information about what are the best practices for training the students for research and providing mentorship for them. So once we know what is actually happening on each campus, on our next slide, you'll see what some of our outcome questions are. So we would love to know to what extent is ARI meeting the needs of the students and faculty members? Again, evaluation is really driven by our stakeholders, by our participants, and ARI wants to make sure that they are meeting the needs of you all that are participating. In addition, we would also like to know how students are potentially growing in some areas of outcomes. And so some of the outcome areas that we are interested in are specific scientific skills and knowledge, general scientific knowledge, communication skills, leadership skills, all of those outcomes that were mentioned earlier. I will say that this is where it is especially important for the faculty members that are mentors right now to please complete the survey that we've sent out, because these skills that we have identified are based primarily on the literature and on document review. But part of the survey is asking you all, what do you expect your students to be able to learn during the course of their research experience. So not only are we trying to figure out what's going on with the students and with the mentoring, but we really want to know, well, what do you expect your students to be able to learn? We also want to know which aspects of the participation in ARI are most effective in achieving these student outcomes. We are looking at retention and graduation rates as well. As you know, the CSU and the Chancellor's Office are very focused on graduation rates as well. And then we recognize that these are not all of the possible outcomes. So what we also do is be very mindful of the intended and possibly unintended positive and negative side effects of participating in all of the ARI supported research projects. So again, this is a very quick overview of the questions that we are trying to look at. And on the next slide, this is how we are actually doing it. So for our evaluation design, we are doing a pre-test, post-test with the students. So those of you that are students that are watching, please expect to get a survey from us. And this is on student research outcomes, some of those that I had already identified. We are also using a quasi-experimental design. In a perfect world, we would be able to do some sort of randomized control trial. That is not feasible in the applied world often. So what we will be doing is using a matched comparison for students that are participating compared to students that are not, that are very similar on demographic information. A couple of the measures that we are doing, the first, as we mentioned, is the faculty mentor survey. And I believe that the link is in the chat. So
Yes,
if you
I've added that, yes.
Thank you so much.
No.
So if you haven't already filled out this survey, please do. It really is to benefit you as the faculty mentors. For those of you that have already taken the survey, you'll see that not only are we addressing well, what are you doing with your student mentees? How are they being trained? But there's also a section there that is focused entirely on you as well in terms of what additional training do you think that you need? How can ARI further support you so that you can better support the students? As I mentioned, we're also doing a pre-test, post-test. We will also be talking to the students with a student focus group, and then we will also be collecting institutional research data from each one of the institutions for students that have consented to allow us to look at that information. So I know that that is pretty brief. I think I had until 10 o'clock, so I don't know if we have any time for questions or if there are any questions, but.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. I don't
Yes.
see any questions coming in, but it's a great overview. I think we have a really good idea of I think of the usefulness for not only the ARI program as a whole, certainly as you hit on that the CSU is, we're in alignment with a lot of the overall objectives of the CSU, you know, increasing these retention rates and doing better with their students so that they get a firm footing when they leave. So the other thing that we want to say is this is valuable for the faculty. When you read through those survey questions, at least when I was reading through them, thinking about my own research program, I thought about, you know, how am I implementing this and what do I really expect from our students? And also, are my expectations maybe too much or not enough, that sort of thing. You know, it would be great if all of the students came in doing the level of postdoc work, but that's not what happens. They come in kind of with a somewhat empty plate, and it's our job to kind of fill up those skills and send them out with a more full plate. Let's see, do I have a question coming in here? Are faculty getting permission from their students to give out their contact information? I'm not sure about that. Let me just say the whole thing is going to be an IRB process, part of working with, I'm not going to be able to answer that question, but believe me, there's going to be full compliance, we'll say, with IRB, and there'll be full disclosures on all of that. So I'm not sure that answers it.
Yes.
One more.
Oh, sorry.
One more quick question. Does QED method involve propensity score matching? That's beyond me.
So that is the goal that we would like to be able to do. So those of you that are familiar with propensity score matching, you know that you need a very large control or comparison group in order to create those matches. So what we would like to be able to do is to do that propensity score where we can then match, and a very brief overview for those that are not familiar is you have your the students that are participating, you look at their characteristics including academic and demographic information, and you find appropriate matches based on that with a ratio, with a propensity score. So that is what we are aiming to do. We hope that we have enough of a control or comparison group to draw from that in order to create those matches. But that's a great question. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Matt, thanks for that question. And Nicole, thank you for making yourself available to talk to our group.
Absolutely.
And hopefully, you know, as I said, that in the chat box, if you click that link there, while you have some downtime today, and I know there's an awful lot of people on you, we could get 50 or 60 more surveys filled out, and all data are good data in this case.
Yes.